out. But the city is not broke. It simply has a lot of serious problems that it has to address. And by the way, in the case of the pensions, that's no different from many other municipalities. In fact, we're in a little bit better shape than many. The real second issue is jobs, jobs, jobs. We simply have to get more jobs in this community, and that means addressing the tension between neighborhood preservation and development is always an issue here, but we've got to bear in mind that jobs are where it's at.
I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said, but the fiscal issue is, and the unfunded pension liabilities are a very big issue, and we do have to go to a defined contribution plan. That's what cities and governments across the nation are doing. That's what corporations are doing. We have to do it. Land development isn't the only economic development, and we need to be aware that that is true. Our arts and culture are a $180 million economic generator. There are other ways to generate jobs, and one is to encourage small businesses. A lot of places use that. Governance is the second issue that I think is very important in this city. Last August, 3 commissioners almost voted to put elected mayor or a boss mayor on the ballot again. We as citizens have rejected that overwhelmingly 3 times. I'm one of the 2 candidates who oppose putting that on the ballot again.
All right, thank you. I'd like to move to our next question. What positive steps will you take to improve all the neighborhoods equally?
What I've done, I've worked on neighborhood issues for a variety of neighborhoods, including forming the neighborhood association in my neighborhood, being president of the Coalition of City Neighborhood Associations, and mentoring other neighborhoods when they have issues. I've worked with various people in neighborhoods and neighborhood leaders to support them. I represented Bayou Oaks when they were sued for opposing a variance. I represented Al Abrams in the Amaryllis Park neighborhood when he stood up to vandals. I have worked in a lot of neighborhoods in this city to represent their interests, both as an attorney and as a neighborhood advocate. And I worked for neighborhood compatibility on the planning board. I think that neighborhoods are where the residents of this city and the voters of this city live, and we have to give them priority. It's very important that we recognize the value of neighborhoods. All planners recognize that.
Suzanne has spent many years informing herself about the needs of the various neighborhoods. And some have great needs, and some of them have very small needs. But she is very conscious in each case of this tension between the neighborhoods and the need for jobs and development. And that tension probably is very healthy and will not go away. But if you go too far one way or the other, that's when you get in trouble. But we really need to concentrate on jobs, jobs, and jobs.
I've been walking the neighborhoods for a little over a month now, and what I'm finding out is the disparity of services that go to individual neighborhoods. I go to neighborhoods that say we don't have curbs, we don't, our stormwater is backing up, we don't have sidewalks. And what I tell them is, yes, there is a disparity, but the problem is we don't have money to pay for anything. We've had a 25% cut in staff over the last several years. We continue to cut every part of our budget that we can possibly cut. There is no money to pay to fix the neighborhoods. So again, we have to increase our tax base. We have to get more money into the city coffers. And we do this by very, very careful growth. We encourage investment in the city. We encourage small business. We encourage medium-sized business. But we're never going to be able to take care of all the neighborhoods equally. We're never going to be able to take care of all the neighborhoods, period, unless we have money to pay for it.
It's funny that I would get this question. We would get this question tonight. I was just pondering today about the possibility of myself winning this race. And I thought to myself, what would I do March or May if I was actually elected to the city commission? And it dawned on me the first thing that I should do as a new commissioner is to approach neighborhood leadership and to begin to develop relationships with them. And I think that's really the only way to be a good commissioner, is to be proactive in developing relationships with those who lead our neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods are obviously the lifeblood of our city. I had a neighbor approach me today and asked me, "Are you Kelvin Lumpkin? I've heard about you." And she was supporting one of us up here, and I think I got her second vote. She was a little concerned to give me her second vote at first, because I said, "I hear you're just development. And I guess what's been a bit frustrating at times with me is that wanting growth is almost tantamount to being anti-neighborhood, which couldn't be any further from the truth. I totally reject that notion that a candidate has to choose between one or the other, at least that I have to choose between one or the other. God knows I don't. And so I've worked in the neighborhood that I've grown up in, trying to make it safer, because I realize our neighborhoods are what makes our city great.
Well, for over 32 years, I have worked in and with neighborhoods. That's what I've been doing, and it seems like I spent almost every waking moment other than working doing neighborhood things. And what we have to do is we have to get the neighbors involved, and that's what I've been very good at, both in my neighborhood and lots of other neighborhoods. There's so much that we can all do together. Yes, the city has to help, but there's so much that we as neighbors can do, and that's what I believe I could bring as a city commissioner. I'll get out there and do it in every neighborhood. I've done it for years and years. And it's not just talking about it, it's getting out there and doing it.
All neighborhoods are under similar threats. There's the threat of neglect, and that doesn't have anything to do with money. 5 or 6 years ago, when the money was flowing fast and free, neighborhoods were being neglected. At that time, you had to you just about had to say there was a man outside your door with a gun before they'd do anything. Now, I never did that. You know, there's a certain bureaucratic inertia, and it doesn't get any better if the bureaucracy gets bigger. So the fact that we've laid people off, that's not a big deal. The other threat to the neighborhoods is development. Sarasota is built out. If they develop anything, they have to tear something down, or they have to use up infrastructure that's already maxed.
All right, thank you. We'll have 2 more questions here before we close out. I'd like to pose the next question back to you, Mr. Thiessen, on, what was I going to say? Speaking about, since we have been talking about financial issues, the deficit itself, what do you as a candidate want to do to help reduce the deficit while also maintaining quality of life in the city of Sarasota?
There is a lot of mission creep in any organization. The longer the organization is in effect, the more it takes on. Sarasota has been around for a while, and it's got a lot of functions that it's doing that are not core government functions. To reduce the deficit, I would first identify the core government functions. Then I would prioritize all the rest of them, and I would fully fund the core government functions, and then wherever the line of funding and money stopped, including debt service, that's where we'd start cutting from there down.
One of the things that I would do is to encourage the citizens to support the local businesses. I think, you know, we all feel like these issues are things that we really can't do anything about. And I think that's something we, all of us sitting in this room, can do. We can support our local businesses and help even to help those businesses expand. It seems like a little thing, but it's a start, and it's something that we can do. There are many things we can do, but that's one suggestion I have.
I think there are a lot of ways we can begin to deal with our financial problems. First, of course, the police budget is the lion's share of our general fund. First of all, I believe the police department could be run more efficiently, and I'm hopeful in our new chief that that's going to happen. I know it costs a lot. We have a lot of officers who live far away from Sarasota, and the cost of maintaining the vehicles is a lot. I would love to see some type of bonus offered again to give some incentive to have police officers live in the city. I believe that would save the city possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars if enough officers take advantage of it. Market what we have. We have a great city. We have great beaches. I know our reputation has taken a hit. I did an interview about a year ago with the BBC over the shootings of the 2 British tourists, and you'd be amazed at how our city's reputation was hurt by that. And so when you have tourists not coming to Sarasota, it hurts us. It hurts our local economy. So we've got to make sure that the world knows and everybody knows that our city is a great place. It's a safe place. I'm going to have to talk to everybody after this because I've got so much to say.
The first problem that's going to face us, as I said, the current police contract is ending in a few months. We have to stanch the bleeding. We have to come up and negotiate with the PBA. I'm endorsed with the PBA. I've met with them on numerous occasions. There's a willingness to negotiate. Let's sort out that problem first. The other thing we have to do is encourage business and growth. We've got plenty of room on the North Trail, Pete. The North Trail ain't built out, unless you consider all those hotels built out. We've got room for good growth there. We've got room to develop there. But it's not just about land development. It's about encouraging business to invest. If we can get investors in here, create jobs, hopefully create jobs for our kids and our grandkids so they don't have to leave the area. But we have to encourage investment in the city. It's not just about land. It's about jobs. It's about business growth as well.
You certainly have to increase the tax base. And in order for that to happen, you have to have jobs and you have to have development that produces those jobs. The other thing that has to happen, someone said the American people simply love the welfare state, they just don't want to pay for it. And I think that's absolutely the case, but sooner or later, this city and this county and other municipalities are going to have to face tax increases. It's pretty easy for me to say that since I'm not running, but Suzanne believes that too.
I agree with some of what everyone has said. In terms of economic development, we have to look at growing local businesses. I believe that our economic development director should not be at the Chamber of Commerce, but should be in the planning department so that there can be cross-pollination. Nobody ever talks about Florican. Nobody ever talks about LexJet. Nobody ever talks about all of these companies that are developing and are growing in our area. But when you talk to young people who have good ideas, or even middle-aged people who have good ideas, a lot of times they need what is called economic gardening. How do you negotiate a lease? How you find the best office space that will work for your business? Those are things that other communities have done so much better than we have, and I believe that we need to look at that economic gardening concept to grow our economy. On our police budget, we need to work on that through more efficiencies through community policing.
All right, and we'll move to our final question. I'll make this one a little bit more towards the younger people of Sarasota. And that is asking the cold-out question of how are you going to help create jobs? As a young citizen, I have a very hard time finding a job myself, and I'm wondering how you want to kind of spur job growth, whether it be through larger department stores and larger businesses coming to Sarasota, or that being local businesses giving some incentive to provide more jobs.
The real job creators in a community are local businesses, growing your own local businesses and taking good ideas and working with them to nurture them. And that's what economic gardening is. Economic development in bringing and paying subsidies is one of the worst ways, one of the most inefficient ways. Quality of life, good schools are the things that bring businesses to our community. But taking good ideas and working to nurture them create small businesses, which create more jobs for young people, for middle-aged people, for old people. Littleton, Colorado has done an excellent job of finding who are the people who have the potential to create fast-growing local businesses and nurture them. We need to start following that economic model.
I agree with Susan that existing small businesses need to grow. We certainly need that, but we need lots of new businesses as well, and we need companies to be attracted here by any way that we can do it. And Suzanne is very committed to doing that.
I think economic gardening will only take you so far. It doesn't address the issue of the great demand we should have for jobs here. Suzette Jones, my sweetheart, has firsthand experience. She has represented 3 or 4 different companies that we tried to bring into Sarasota, and because of our onerous planning board and our onerous city regulations, our zoning issues, they said, we just plain don't want to do business in Sarasota. It is well known. Don't try to do business in Sarasota. I'm very close to the business community, as Pete has pointed out to you, and that is the word on Sarasota. That's the knock. We're not going to let you do it here. We're going to make it difficult for you. So unless we come up with ways to embrace bringing in business, and we say, how can we help you come here, as opposed to how can we keep you out, we're never going to attract business here. We have to really look at the issues that keep business away and say, how do we bring it in? How do we come up with concrete solutions that welcome investment in our community?
Thank you. I too believe that growth has to be intentional, but obviously everything and everybody doesn't fit in Sarasota. So I think we've got to find the businesses that want to come here, make them feel welcome, that will enhance our neighborhoods, enhance our city, and be aggressive, be intentional in inviting them to come. I think that's just one way that we can bring more jobs for young people. I know there are a lot of young people who would love to come back here, but that's probably the main reason why. We've got everything else. We've got the sun. You don't have to commute an hour to work, but just finding jobs. If more people found jobs, we'll never be in Atlanta, but I think we could certainly do better than we're doing right now.
We need to use the creative energy and the ideas of the younger folks in the city, and we need to bring them into the discussion. I know I talk to some people who feel like, okay, some of the youth who feel like they're not involved in these discussions. We need to figure out how to bring them in. We need to encourage them to come in and be part of the discussion. We have to give them areas where that creativity can be extended and utilized, and their businesses can be started. Like the Rosemary District is a perfect place. It's just been kind of left alone for way too long, and I think that's an area where the youth and the arts and culture generators can really all come together, and I think that would be a great place to start really developing what can be a good place for our youth to be creative and energetic as they are.
I'd like to see road construction. However, we've got 2 problems with road construction. Maybe just one. The problem I identify as number 1 is the people who want to develop a lot of density and a lot of height, which is actually neutral in and of itself. They don't want to pay the impact fees or the concurrency to construct the roads. So without the roads, we are built out. No matter how many, no matter how much land there is, if you're stuck to 2 lanes, you're built out, and that's what you've got. You've got 2 lanes one way, 2 lanes the other way in the North Trail. This is not to mention the crime problem. Well, let's not mention that. Now, I wonder how many of our young people would like to work in road construction. You know, it's not like it was 50 years ago when I did it. Nowadays, you just stand there for 8 hours leaning on a shovel. The machines do all the work.
All right, to close, we'll give each of the candidates approximately 3 to 4 minutes here to give any closing statements, anything they'd like to say, and I'll hand the floor back over to Mr. Farmer here. So we'll start again with Mr. Thiessen and then move on down the line like we have been tonight.
All right. I think most of you know me, but I didn't introduce myself. I came to Sarasota in 1981, and I worked as a photographer lab person and publics clerk, and got a job driving 18-wheelers, did that in the lower 48 states, and then came back and got into to security, and I started going to graduate school, and I took math, marketing, various things, and finally got a degree in Chinese medicine. And I retired from that and started becoming a politician. When I first took the campaign trail, I did so because I was, well, I don't want to say enraged, but I was more like startled. Startled is the word. That the Sarasota City Commission repealed a law that the police were using to fight the drug trade. The police were using this law to bust drug dealers, and the City Commission repealed it. So I decided to run for office on that bit of news. And I ran 4 years ago. I ran against 8 people, one of whom never showed up at any of the forums. It was an empty chair. Every forum. He only campaigned in one neighborhood. And when all was said and done, I finished dead last with 1% of the vote. He came in ahead of me by 71 votes without ever campaigning in the forums. However, the thing that sort of was a little bit annoying was that he had felony convictions. Well, all right, that got me 1% of the vote. The next time I ran for a district seat, I did a little better. I got 7% of the vote. Well, now, there's 2 ways you can look at that. You can look at it that I picked up 6 points, or you can look at it as a multiplier, that it was a factor of 7. If it is, I'll get 49% this time, and I'll be in the runoffs.
Thank you all for listening to us today.